Hello, video on demand people. The best people. The only people that matter. If indeed I am live, let's find out together. Yep. Yep, that's live. Hello, video on demand people. The only people that matter. Actually, that's not true. No, it is. What kind of person is just hanging out waiting for the stream to go live? That would be very strange. That would be very weird. Probably put some music on in the background in a second. What is up? Who cares? What is up? Well, that was just went live and suddenly there are people here. And I have not really told anybody about this. I told the mods. Let me let the mods know. Let me let the modulators know that we are live on the YouTubes. At live mods. We are live. We are live. Hello. Hi. Hey, everybody. Hey, what's up? What's up, Michael? There's Dima Jadar. There's people whose names I recognize. Hello. Hello. Hi. Hey. Hi. Glad you're here. Glad you could join us. It's been a week. The last 3 months have been a hell of a year. Is this live? Is this a test? Do not adjust resolution. How do I should pop this chat out is what I should do. Pop out chat. There we go. Let's get it closer to the camera. I am a camera. So this is, a tradition, frankly. Although one honored more in the breach than the observance. What's up, Germany? Germany played Draw Steel and had a blast. Of course you did. Of course you did, because you were people with taste. You must forgive my enthusiasm for a product that my friends and I have worked a lot on. It's somewhat incredible getting to see people engaging with the books. Wait till the physical books start shipping. Wait till the Ajax editions. It's going to be a while, but wait till the Ajax editions start showing up. Pretty awesome getting the notification of shipping. Wow, are you from the future? Nothing, as far as I know. No, yeah, what you probably mean is the PDFs going out. Why I have a little crown. Marcio Martins. I do not know. It's because you were the king of something. Probably because you were the first person to chat, or you've chatted the most. Maybe it means you've chatted the best. Let's all believe that. But now Wesley Boyette is number one. So now we don't know what to believe. Now who knows who even knows what number one means? Socratic Lover, very happy to see the mod team here. What's up, Dice Society? I'm glad to see the Dice Society is one of the first people who believed. Dice Society and Goblin Points are two very popular podcasts that cover the goings on. What's up, Croatia? Glad to see a Croat here. I don't know how to get you a crown, Zero Interrupt. I guess you just got to, I don't know, you got to behave or misbehave or unbehave. Genuine Q&A stuff. Niall, you got folks, we can talk about whatever you want, but if you ask a question or you make a comment and I do not respond, that may be because I didn't want to. That's the secret to these streams is I pick the stuff that I want to engage with and I sort of ignore the rest. And it's very idiosyncratic. You never know what's up, Boland. Actually, my significant other's, one of her dance teachers is in Poland. And she is very, and actually one of my YouTuber I follow, who's a fashion commenter, but mostly expert on like 18th and 19th and 20th century fashions. She's hysterical. What is up, Daniel Lolobo? Happy to see you here. Your in-person group in Draw Steel, amazed at what you could pull off working together, only level 1. Yeah, people, it's not entirely unlike the experience. It's the reason that after the Chain of Acheron, we went into lockdown and I missed my friends and I wanted to do something with them that we could do remote. I was like, you know what? I think these folks, meaning like Matt O'Driscoll, Tom Schmuck, Anna, we invited Dale and Dale played. It's all on YouTube somewhere. Dusk. I think these folks would really like 4th edition. And I remember asking Dale if she had played it, and I don't think she had. And I remember Matt O'Driscoll at one point, relatively early on, there were a couple of beats, and they weren't like in the first episode or two. They were still learning their characters and figuring out what they could do. And it was another thing where I had played 4E for so long that it was all just baked in. That I had a hard time explaining some of this stuff because it might have been Matt. Somebody's like, we were playing some game and he was like, here, you should do this. You're good at explaining games. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm good at explaining like 2 or 3 games because I've explained a lot, like the Dune board game. Okay, I can explain that game. I'm pretty good at that. But that's because not only have I played it thousands of times, I've explained it dozens and dozens of times. So it was actually really tricky for me to kind of explain how 4E worked because I knew how it worked. It's kind of like when you're playing a video game and somebody in chat's like, what button is this? And you can't just conjure the answer. You have to actually do it. You have to do it and you go, oh, it's the B button, right? That's how I felt when I was trying to teach these folks 4E, but eventually they got it. And there was a point where there's like 36 undead in a graveyard that all come alive and attack the heroes. And OD was like, we're all going to die. And then there's a point where he's like, are we going to do this? Can we? And then he felt like a hero. And he was like, this is unbelievable. And he wouldn't shut up about it. We were talking about it offline and stuff. And there was another moment so what I thought was going to be the end of Dusk where they find the humans. And I thought at this point we've already played 4E, but they all wanted to keep playing. And Matt O'Driscoll leaps off the top of this tree onto the Goblin War Spider. Sir Vanazor was his character's name, and he was at that point he was completely hooked and sold. So yeah, that when people show up and they're like, my players couldn't shut up about how awesome having all these abilities and all this power at first level. And really what they mean is not feeling like a schmuck, right? Not feeling like a boob at first level. They felt like, hey, the game's already fun. I don't have to wait to unlock stuff to make it fun. It's like, yeah, we did it that way on purpose. And I knew that was possible because of the experience I'd had in previous games. Raymond Hempill says, are you at Gen Con? Which, you mean GentleCon? No, sorry. That's Matt O'Driscoll's joke. Don't blame me. No, I'm not at Gen Con. I think my Gen Con days are probably over. I went to Gen Con in 2018, 2019. I don't remember which it was. And this was after Strongholds and Followers and after the YouTube channel had blown up. And maybe it would be different now, but actually all signs indicate that it would actually be a lot worse. Like I couldn't go, I could walk maybe about 60 feet and then someone would stop me. And this included like outside, like just going to get something to eat on the, because the show takes over the entire town. And that was gross. I did not, on a moment by moment basis, meeting members of the community is awesome. I quite like it. Even when I go to get lunch at the Spectrum or whatever, somebody will stop me. I went and saw Superman. Somebody stopped me and was like, said some very complimentary things and showed me a game they had worked on that actually looked pretty cool. And I was like, this guy seems awesome, right? That's my normal experience meeting community members. But going to Gen Con and having it happen, like once a minute, and I ran into Matt Mercer, and he, like, Liam is having to grab him and pull him. And eventually I think that was probably the last time those folks went to a show without security. And that's what our general manager said. He goes, Matt, if you want to go to Gen Con, you need security. You need somebody, at least one person. And he has organized this for lots of folks, cosplayers and stuff like that. And he's like, and so that's one half of why I'm not going to Gen Con. It's not anybody's fault, right? Like I said, I like meeting these folks. I like talking to them. I make it a point to engage with them and say, so what do you, tell me about your game. And I mean it. I like giving people, especially when they seem kind of starstruck, which is a ridiculous thing to be, as I think we can all agree when it comes to me. I like giving them something to talk about where they feel comfortable. And their game, and they always sound great. I'm like, that all sounds amazing. The other half is I used to go to Gen Con every year from like 1996, 97 to 2003, and it was awesome. It was in Milwaukee, I think. And it was not in where it is now. And it was, I don't know. I think the show was smaller. I think actually it might've been in a bigger hall. I think the Gen Con hall is like really small compared to the size of the show. And and my experience then was awesome, right? This is why I would tell people you should go to a local show, especially a show like Gen Con or PAX. PAX U might be a better example in this day and age, because I would walk the exhibitor hall. Right. You could spend all of Gen Con back in the 90s and early 2000s. You could spend all of Gen Con just in the exhibitor hall and sort of never run out of stuff to do because, oh, hang on a minute. I did not tell everybody you're live. I am live. Sorry, mods. I meant to send that message earlier. Mods, if you see any problems, I am monitoring the live stream feed channel in case you need to talk to me because I paused chat. So yeah, I loved Gen Con, and it may be that it may be that you would have this experience if you went now, but talking to friends of mine who are at the show this year, who were at the show last year, it's not like this. You could walk the floor of the exhibitor hall and it wasn't packed. I mean, there were people everywhere, but it wasn't press of bodies packed. And you could walk up to a booth and there would be some game you've never heard of that looks amazing. And you could just get into a demo. I'm talking about big games like War Machine. I remember they had these amazing little like kiosks set up. I don't know how else to describe them, where there would just be a person with a Privateer Press shirt on standing in the Privateer Press booth, which had nice springy padding on the floor, which was fun. And they would have these like bar tables. I don't know how to describe it. It would be a table and the table would be, about this big. The whole table is about that big, and it's got 3 minis over here and 3 minis over here, and it's about at chest height. It's this tall, thin little table, and there was a bunch of them, and you could just walk up and they'd say, "Hey, do you want to learn how to play Warhammer?" And I'm like, "Yes, I would like to do that." And so I would, and you could ask questions, and these are the developers, or these are if not the devs, these are volunteers, and it was awesome. It was so awesome. You would never run out of stuff to try, and the last time I went to Gen Con, it was really not like that. You could see that they were trying to do stuff like that at any given booth, but the amount and press of people constantly going by, it might take you 20 minutes just to get to like a counter if you wanted to ask somebody a question. So no, alas and alack, I think my Gen Con days are behind me. I would love it if that wasn't true. I can imagine going to Gen Con. I almost went this year just to meet with certain people, like other creative partners that we deal with. But no, in fact, I think it's inevitable that either we're going to pick some other convention like PAX U or Gamehole Con maybe, and just sort of like make that our home convention. That way somebody else is doing all the work to make the show happen. We just show up, and I've seen companies have great success with that. So that sounds like a totally doable thing. But also, we might do our own convention someday. That seems unlikely. And when I say unlikely, it's mostly an issue of how much time it would take and where's that time going to come from. It's not impossible that we would partner with a company that puts on shows, but where's all that? Where's that time going to come from? And would it make money or would it cost money? If it broke even, that would probably be worth it, right? If it broke even, but that's still a lot of time of hours devoted to putting on a show. And we got games to make. Lots of games. So now I'm super behind on chat, which I happen to love. Turn on timestamps. There we go. 4:43. Oh, no, it shows me when I turn. Oh, here we go. Wait. I recognize that. No, wait. Praxis 06. Hello. How is the launch of Draw Steel going? It is going. It's difficult for me to say without sounding hugely biased, but I think I can speak for the team at large when I say the response to it has been better than we hoped, and we had high hopes. People are already playing it. They're already playing it. We saw people saying, "I just played it today. I played it last night," in chat, and they it's remarkable. It's emotional. It's really emotional. It's sort of awesome. Yeah. I mean, but at the end of the day, it's yours now. What I think about it and how I feel about it is somewhat personal. But I feel like we worked really hard. I was really proud of the work we did. And now that we're seeing, and the reception is just getting started. There are people who I would say it's going to be weeks, if not months, for a lot of people who have gotten their PDFs before they will be able to try the game, because either they need to get a group together or they're already playing a game and they're like, okay, well, when this wraps up, we'll try Draw Steel. That's totally normal. So and then the books are going to start shipping at sometime in September, and then the Ajax editions are going to start going out sometime probably in November. And so there's going to be these waves of discussion and stuff happening. But yeah, it's been really, really nice. Like, I do not pay attention to things like pre-orders and revenue. That's what our general manager does. Our general manager is at Gen Con for a bunch of meetings. And he just messaged me yesterday with some screenshots of the store. And it was like, wow. Like the Delian Tomb has already paid for itself, which is very nice considering we spent a lot of money on it. And that's always a risk. You never know. But actually, I would say the main support pillar of the success right now of the game is the Delian Tomb. The fact that we managed to get what I would consider a really good starter adventure done and out at the same day as the core rules means that people who want it's $10. It's $10 and it's hundreds of pages because it's everything you need to know. It's a really good adventure, like the Delian Tomb inside a larger kind of sandbox area, classic fantasy adventure wrapped in a quite good, I think, tutorial that you don't have to, it's none of this, read this whole thing first. Just step one, put the map out, right? We're going to start with the first encounter. Blacksmiths have kidnapped the goblin's daughter. Are you a bad enough dude to save them? From her, ? Anyway, so that decision, I think, was the right one. It was a lot of work, an enormous amount of work on James's part. He had to get 2 core rule books out. He had to get the Delian Tomb out. He had to get the Road to Broadhurst, the convention, which we've seen people are running at Gen Con, which makes me very happy. So yeah, things are going incredibly well. Origins might be on the table. Oh, YouTube just said, sorry, I'm not going to allow you to stay behind on chat. And it snapped me to this moment. Do you feel like everything has led to this moment? Angela Mello. Professionally, yes. Personally, I have a life outside of MCDM, and that's going pretty good. Cap God 1. Salutations, great Buckaroo Bonsai. I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for inspiring them to become a DM. That makes me very happy. I hope your friends realize that how much work you have done for them, and they pay you back in kind, and run for you. Hello, Shadon444. I love the moment. Welcome to the moment. Have you ever desired not to be popular? All the time. I mean, I would not characterize myself as popular. I am I'm very, very, very happily, very few people have any idea who I am. When will you see episode 2? Thursday. Oh, that's another thing. I've been really happy, and it's a relief for me for a lot of reasons. But seeing the reaction to the Delian Tomb playthrough, people love watching, especially Jordy, and I'm like, that makes me so happy. That Jordy is a great role player. And seeing people's reactions to his improvisation has been amazing. You have 500,000 followers. Mage's Musings. I have 500,000 subscribers, but anybody in this chat should know that doesn't mean anything. You can have lots and lots of subscribers, but that doesn't mean anybody's paying attention. What you should pay attention to if you want to understand how popular any given channel is when they upload a new video, how many people watch it. So when I upload a new video, it gets, between 60,000 and 120,000 views, depending on the video. And I'm pretty good at being able to guess depending on the topic and, the zeitgeist at the moment. And so, yeah, there are lots of people who would be willing to give organs to have that kind of following. But there's an awful lot of people who have way, way, way more followers than me. Yeah, do you have molecules here? Yeah, I love that stuff. Now, Jordy did a really good job of playing an alien. He's an alien, and James did a really good job. And so this I think it goes a long way toward kind of resolving some of the ambiguity when people read the setting and they're like, this is really weird. What are Time Raiders and Memenek doing in this fantasy setting? And like, they're not in that. That's not, the Time Raiders and the Memenek are not in Orden. They are part of the timescape. They're part of we just wanted to make sure that people understood that it sort of doesn't matter what you've been doing with D20 Fantasy in the past 30 years, that's in here somewhere, right? Are you normally like a Planescape, kind of Dark Sun, kind of Spelljammer person? We've got that stuff in here too, right? And so James playing these medieval people reacting to devils and Time Raiders appropriately, I think goes a long way towards showing how, like, depends on how you want to run it. You could absolutely run a game where these are just normal things and who cares? Knock yourself out. But the way we imagine it is that Time Raiders and Memenek are, it's basically like what would a bunch of 12th century people in England think if they saw or met a Klingon? Same thing. Actually, that's not a bad example. I should use that more often. Oh, thank God, I turned off the super chat thing. I can imagine someday turning it back on, but I turned off super chats because what would happen would be people would 9 times out of 10, somebody would just be throwing money at me, like $5 to say thanks. And I'm like, great, thanks. But what would happen is people would spend money thinking that earned them an answer to their question. And I don't like that idea. That started to get, people would start to get pissy. Why isn't he answering my question? I'm like, well, because I don't want to, because I read the question and I didn't like it. And I think you're going to see more and more fun stuff happen in that stream, in those live plays as more episodes drop. Every Thursday, I think we might try to do a premiere. I think that would be fun. It would be fun to watch along with everybody else. The trick is, no, I think we will probably do that once Jerry has it edited. The trick is sometimes, it takes a long time to edit these videos. And we also talked about making it so that patrons would get to watch it first, but that gets a lot more complicated because of how you have to put things behind, different visibilities. 736 people, what Mage is musing. Yeah, so you have 736 people watching you live. Yep, once again, there are lots of people out there who'd be like, oh, that's a lot. Holy crap. Why don't I get that many people? But then you go on Twitch and you're like, oh, somebody has 70,000 people watching, and that's not unusual. Thank you, Demetrius Christou. Dima Jadar, I didn't imagine that was Dima Jadar. Your Jago was so sad. I understand what you meant in the video. I feel like I am going to cry. I did not think that was going to have that. I said this in Twitch. We'll stream for about 90 minutes probably. That's the normal length. And then I'll probably take a break, maybe get something to eat. And then we may stream on Twitch, which was my normal native streaming environment. I stream on Twitch because almost no one knows I'm there. And I like that. But one of the things I said, I was watching back the video that we just dropped about backstories, which, by the way, if you folks have any questions about that, that's sort of ostensibly the reason we're streaming, but really it's whatever you want to talk about. And I was watching me talking. I often watch my videos back. By the way, I think this is good advice to any creator, if you can stand it, to watch your own stuff, to read your own stuff. If you don't like it, be critical of it. And in my experience, creators are the most critical of their stuff. And I'm watching the video back and I'm listening to myself describe. I'm watching me describing playing Jago and the idea of Jago mourning who he used to be and who he's sort of losing touch with, and his memories are fading, but he's not yet this new person yet. And I'm like, did I inadvertently make Jago an analog for being trans? And I think I kind of did. And that was a little amazing to me. And then, of course, people in chat were like, oh, yeah, we that wasn't on purpose, because we all thought, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. There's actually a remarkably robust number of trans folks in the MCDM community, and that sort of makes me feel like we must be doing something right. But when I say we, I think mostly the mods. The mods are principally responsible for the quality of our community, I think. RPGs are a niche of gaming, which is itself a niche of hobbies, says John Sussenberger. Correct. Any notoriety I may have has to be in that context. Yes. In fact, our general manager said, Matt, this is relatively early on after he got hired. Our general manager said, Matt, you have picked the hardest way to make money in all of gaming. And that was years ago when he started. And then like just this last weekend, it's like a week ago when everyone was working till 1 o'clock in the morning, trying to get the PDFs done, trying to get the books ready. I just get a message at like 1:30 in the morning from our general manager saying, there's got to be an easier way to make a living. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Well, now one of the things we're going to be working on is Derelict. Yeah, the Delian Tomb covers, the classic look of the Delian Tomb. I'm glad that people like that. I think I should tell Jason. I should tell Jason, because I had a vision for the cover of the Delian Tomb that I conveyed to him and that he seemed excited by, but the one I got didn't really look anything like that. And Jason's attitude was like, and usually, and that's sort of how we work here, is that if the stuff that I'm inspired by inspires other people, then it goes into the book. If the stuff that I'm inspired by causes someone like Jason, this is especially true between the design versus art barrier. Jason hears my pitch and he gets excited because of what it makes him think of. And then when I get is that, right? And that's pretty common, is that I get excited by something, I convey it to Jason, Jason seems excited, and then I look at him like, what's this? And it's the thing that he thought of. And so my initial response when I saw the Delian Tomb cover a while ago was, oh, well, yeah, that's cool. That's not really what I was imagining. But then when I took it on its own merits and I saw it in the layout and I was just staring at the piece, I'm like, this is awesome. I love this. It looks really good. and in terms of like things like composition and lighting and stuff like that. But it also, I think this is inadvertent. I don't think this was ever part of the art direction. I think it's Brian Torero is the artist. I'm not sure. It has a very kind of Errol Otis vibe to it. And that also made me really happy. We're doing a lot of like, left brain, right brain stuff right now. We're doing a lot of work like the Delian Tomb, the Road to Broadhurst, the Dark Heart of the Wood, which is an upcoming adventure for Draw Steel, whatever we end up calling the Knoll adventure. I liked the Destroyers, but that might not be it's a really short adventure, and I feel like the Destroyers sounds like a longer, more epic adventure than the Knoll adventure is, or the Red Road might be a name of it. We'll see. We don't know. Those are relatively short, bite-sized adventures, and all those adventures, Delian Tomb, Road to Broadhurst, all that stuff is all showing people you can run normal bog standard D20 fantasy in this and you will have fun. And we think you'll have more fun, obviously, or for obvious reasons. And then we're also working on stuff that we think is like this is a Draw Steel adventure, and Crack the Sun is one of those, but also The Condemned is one of those. So when people see that stuff, I think they're really going to be blown away. What are the next steps for Draw Steel? Well, I did a whole blog post. It's on the Patreon. It's on BackerKit about everything we're working on. So the next steps are get a bunch of adventurers out, the Summoner, a new class, the Beast Heart, an old MCDM class that we're revising for 5e, 6 new ancestries, gnomes, goblins, only G's. No, gnomes, goblins, fairies, Raiden Whites, shadow elves, and an unnamed but known species of dragonfly folk. We do not know what they're going to be called yet, although we're kind of zeroing in on a name. I don't think it's going to be a bunch of English words. I think it's going to be a unique kind of like Skeksis or something like that. And then who knows? Did we ever play the North Africa board game? No, we spent a lot of time. In fact, a lot of people helped us try to figure the game out. And what happened was eventually it stopped being an issue of figuring the game out. And it started to be an issue. I've explained this before, but I don't mind talking about it again. It started to become, now that we understand how you play this and what it is, why would anybody ever play this for any reason? Because it's unlike any other war game I've ever played. It's not like Operation Crusader, right? Which is like a war game it's a war game of the campaign for North Africa, right? I've got Operation Crusader. We could have played that and no one would have cared. But Campaign for North Africa is different. It is not a strategy war game. It is a logistics war game. So you spend all of your time checking, and there's schedules of events because it's historical. So it's like, okay, well, we know in the real world on this day in April, these fuel ships showed up at this port. So that happens in CNA. And you're sitting there just writing down. Most of the game seems to be just transferring information from one sheet to another sheet by hand with pencils. I don't know why. And then you're spending most of your time calculating how much of your gasoline evaporated getting it from point A to point B, because the whole thing you're trying to do is make sure that your front line is well supplied. And when things break down on your front line, how quickly can you repair them? How much support do you have? Where are your support lines? When a tank breaks down, how hard is it to get it back to base and repair it? Can it be repaired in the field? And it's just nothing but incredible tedium and no game. It never seemed or looked or felt anything like a game. And so that was where we were like, I don't think there's just streaming this for 6 hours. And it's literally just a bunch of people standing around looking at sheets, not talking, not kibitzing, not strategizing, not rolling dice, just looking at sheets and copying numbers from one to another. It's like, no, we gave it a shot. We did our best. The Wine Guide says they prefer watching live streams on YouTube because they can watch it on their big TV, and they can't do that with Twitch. Yet again, another reason that I stream on Twitch. Cable Snarky likes the Dune videos. That makes me really happy. People often are like, when are you going to do that again? I'm like, well, I think we did it. I don't think there's any percentage really in doing it again. How much backstory should a dungeon master write for their campaign setting? I think I just answered that in a video. You may somewhere here on YouTube, there may be a video that answers that question. What do I think of those original 5 videos? My opinion about them hasn't changed. I'm pretty happy with them. I think I did what I set out to do. Thank you, James Pico, or Picot, probably Pico. Duke Nukem, The Condemned is going to be. I think people really underestimate how much fun, and this could be true of players and directors and just, normal everyday people out there in the wild, really underestimate how much fun an adventure can be, where the adventure tells you what characters you have to make. You're not bringing your own, your normal characters you've been playing. It's like, no, you are a criminal on death row. You are condemned to death. You make whatever character you want, but that is the truth of them. Now it's up to you to determine, am I guilty? Am I guilty and unrepentant? Or am I guilty and there was a good reason? Was I accused of a crime I didn't commit? Am I a political prisoner? I spoke out against the government and this is where I am, right? There's like an infinite variety of characters you can make for that kind of Dirty Dozen, Suicide Squad kind of game. And then you're given a job, right? And we'll see, I could be wrong, but I think people, when you see that kind of thing, people get really excited and they want to do it. And the fact that it's out of continuity with their normal campaign, I don't think that bothers people. DeVirus says, I never thought we'd actually have the pleasure of watching MCDM play a campaign. Oh yeah, I'd love to do it again. Yeah, and I think we probably will. I think we probably will do more stuff like this Delian Tomb thing. We have the whole thing set up for it. The difference between streaming, so there's different tiers, right? Streaming my game live onto Twitch in person with everybody at the table, in other words, the Chain of Acheron, was a pretty miserable experience. I loved running that game. I loved running the chain. I loved my players. I loved everything that happened in it. It was just streaming it that was a miserable experience for obvious reasons. But then I did Dusk on Twitch. And it was just, everybody was in chat. You could hear Tom and Anna and Odie and that, but you couldn't see them. It was just me streaming and my face in the corner. Sort of what Rise Heroes Rise does. Rise Heroes Rise is a great draw steal live play series. So that was a lot more fun, many fewer viewers, and that's probably part of the fun. A lot of people didn't even know I did it. I streamed a whole 4E campaign on Twitch. And then what Jerry did was he took the live stream from Twitch, edited it down, edited out all the table talk and all the, right, and then uploaded that. And that edited version I found really watchable, actually, in a way that I often don't find live play videos, even my own, very watchable. But what Jerry edited together, I was like, hey, this is pretty good. I could get into this. And I felt the same way about the Delian Tomb. We played for 18 hours or thereabouts, and Jerry is editing it all down. And he was like, you guys did pretty good. I didn't really have to make any edits in the first 45 minutes. And I was like, hey, not bad. But also the fact that it's not live means that if we want to just, kibitz and gossip and stuff like that, people blowing off steam about the people that annoy them at their day job and stuff like that, they can do that. And they don't have to worry about the general public listening in. So I definitely think we'll do more stuff that is us playing our own home games, record them, edit them, upload them. I just don't know when. Do I feel, ask Jetglow, says, many of us share a history of playing and understanding games like Draw Steel. Yeah, that's fair enough. Do you feel like players new to the genre will have an easy time? I mean, on a player-by-player basis, yes and no. I mean, we've definitely seen people struggle with Draw Steel because of how different it is from what they're used to. Oh, look at that. Aaron Russell says, hey, Matt, I'm one of the DMs of the West Marches server you shouted out a few years ago. I think that was a mixed blessing for those folks. They were like, yay, Matt Cola shouted us. Oh, God. Oh, God. And also, I think I did a bad job of selling what the West Marches was. Or at least I didn't. I think I said everything that it was. But I treated all these different features as being co-equal, but they're not. It's really, the West Marches is about this, but people were hyper-focused on this part. Our latest campaign was actually a shipwrecked prison ship where we had all the players make a prisoner. I don't know what BG means. Background. I get it. Yeah, that's awesome. That's the thing. I think, this is, I think this is true of all, this has nothing to do with Draw Steel, by the way. This is true of all role-playing stuff. Give people a box and say, color in these lines, and they get really fucking creative. Give them an infinite blank canvas and they get analysis paralysis. So yeah. So it's on a player by player basis. Some people grok it instantly. Some people bounce off it. Some people struggle with parts of it that I mean, this is often true, like when it comes to like the lore, and people say stuff like, I really don't understand the concept of saints. And I'm like, I I don't know. I don't think that's draw steel is causing that confusion. And what I should do, and I thought of this only like a week or two ago. Next time that happens, I'm just going to go get the Genevieve song from Camelot. I'm over here beneath this tree, because it's literally Guinevere talking to her saint, being like, if this is how it's going to be, I'm done with you. I'm going to go find a new saint to pray to. Right. And I'm like, I'm just going to link that and go here, just watch this, incredibly popular musical. And it's that's what it's about. So you never know. That's the issue when you're making a game like this, that is not where we never tried to play to the gallery. We made the thing that we wanted. We made the thing we believed in. You get people bounce off it for all kinds of reasons, and you never know why. And every time they do, I mean, especially when it comes to the gameplay, I'm usually like, no, I get it. Yep, I get it. That's weird. When people are like, this stuff's weird, I'm like, yeah, that's why we like it. Wakeful just got the complete series of the Venture Brothers. Thank you for recommending that. Yeah, the Venture Brothers is one of the best things I have ever seen. I've never seen anything in any medium. Now, mind you, I haven't seen everything or read everything, but of everything I have, nothing I felt really captures what it feels like to be Gen X the way that does. In fact, I wrote a whole blog post about it. I should turn it into a video. It was called Digging Through the Cultural Wreckage, and about that feeling of how there was a generation that was our grandparents who, if you're speaking in purely melodramatic terms, they beat Hitler, saved the world, went to the moon. And then the next generation is Star Wars and Pink Floyd and all of this art, all this incredible art that still inspires people, including me today. And then what do we get? What did my generation do? The internet, I guess, my generation sort of came up with. And we spend so much of our time digging through this cultural wreckage that the boomers left, trying to see if there's anything left. Galactus, there's something from the 1960s. Let's stick him in there, right? What do we have sitting around from that the boomers did that we can try to strike sparks off of in this wrecked plane? And that's what watching the Venture Brothers is like. And I'm like, yep, they get it. Excuse me, I have to. Actually, no, that's not what I want to do it here. I'm like, here we go. Here. Somebody's responding to my campaign for North Africa there. That sounds boring. Yeah. Alexander Amazing says, loving the book so far. Glad to see your creativity on this scale and so much good stuff from the rest of the team. I mean, it's amazing. There's so much stuff in this book. Like, there's stuff in this book, art, that I didn't see until we were reviewing the final PDFs for print last week. And I'm like, oh, what is that? No, it is not. I just answered that. I thought, I was like, what is that? And Jason or somebody would be like, oh, it's this. There's even stuff that we stole. There's art that we stole from future products that Jason, our art director, didn't know that we stole. It was very much the layout folks, like, what do we have that we can stick here? Let's grab some of that. And Jason sees it. He was like, hey, what's that? We're like, look away, Jason. Jason, look away. And it was just, we needed to fill some stuff. So if you want a little tiny preview of what half of the Raiden White ancestry illustration is going to look like, it's in the monster book somewhere. I won't tell you where. Channel Mao, yeah. The West Marches is about the principle of the West Marches is breaking that it's game night and we just show up and our DM does a song and dance for us, where the DM feels like, why am I doing all this work? What a pain in the ass. They don't seem to care about any of this. It's just game night, and this is what we do on game night. And my attitude is always like, D&D is too much work. RPGs are too much work if that's your player's attitude. Play Talisman. Play Eclipse. Eclipse is a great fucking game. Eclipse 2nd edition. Play whatever. I just ordered Nemesis. We're going to play that as research. But the West Marches is an attempt to break the back of that by saying, I don't have any content prepared and there is no game night. If you folks want to play, you tell me what you want to do and when you're around and who's around, and I will prep something and then I will be ready to play. So it has to be sufficiently far away in the future. And that's the West Marches, is putting the burden of organizing everything on the player's side. And that not only organizing when are we going to play and who's in this group, but also what are you going to do? So now the game becomes much more player directed, which I think is great. I think that's super fun. I love that kind of play. But one of the things I talked about was it's a great style of play when you have a bunch of people that want to DM and you have 3 or 4 or 5 people that want to run, and you can have a whole huge group of like 30 people that play all in different groups at different times, and they're all in the same world. And that's what everybody hyper focused on. But that's just a thing you can do with the West Marches. It's not what the West Marches is. Excuse me. I still can't believe, says Daniel Lolobo, the Tree of Might in the Monster Book. I don't know what that's a reference to. I'm aware that it's a reference. But that's one of the nice things about having James and Jordy and Willie working on this, is that there's tons of references to all kinds of stuff that to them, that's draw steel. Like, and I look at it like, yeah, that's true. That, absolutely. Like that, a lot of that, whatever that I get, it's not that I don't remember what it's called. It's that I remember too many things and I don't know which one's which. But the, like the Power Rangers style of fantasy is absolutely right, bang alongside draw steel nonsense. And Willie brings a lot of that anime stuff to it, which is good. Cause I think there's tons of anime that has that kind of draw steel vibe to it. Seth Wolagrowski says, I feel a lot of fatigue watching rehashed ideas and IPs. Yeah, me too. I saw that Fantastic Four movie. Do you think we would get more meaningful stories if studios were forced to start new more often? I don't know what meaningful means in that context, so probably not. I don't think that rehashing an IP necessarily means that therefore you don't get meaning out of it. I think that's just down to who's working on it. But I definitely feel like every generation deserves the opportunity to take their own dreams, which are synthesized from a bunch of things that came from Star Wars synthesizes a whole bunch of stuff. But it did so in a way that felt incredibly fresh and new. Every generation should have the opportunity to do that, I think. And I think that we could build a better society that did encourage that to happen. We just choose not to. So what are you going to do? Excuse me. Spar Hawkian, I know what that's a reference to. Hello, Mr. Kovala. Hello. I just wanted to say that you are one of the many who I inspired. I changed who the speaker and listener is in the middle of that sentence. To inspired to be a GM. That makes me very happy. When I put those videos out, I remember those first 5 videos, I remember thinking that they wouldn't do much because the culture I came from, the culture I was raised in, if you post videos like that, the response is, who are you to tell me how to run? Go away. But happily, those people had all basically left the hobby by the time, or they probably hadn't left the hobby. They just weren't using social media. So they weren't on YouTube, right? And the people that were all the new dungeon masters that Critical Role and 5th Edition and Stranger Things and other stuff, not just those 3, but I think principally those 3 brought to the hobby, and they were desperate for content like this. And so that's the only reason it worked, was because I got lucky. And you would have got there on your own, Spar Hockey, and I feel this way about everybody. You would have got there on your own, trust me. At best, what I did was shorten the way. Excuse me. Congratulations, thank you, CH Joe 83. I don't know what pitching that means. You can say what you want, including an ongoing actual play campaign. Oh, I see what you're saying. As part of the marketing. I'm actually surprised. I apologize. I don't know where this paragraph that I'm speaking right now is going to go. So if it becomes critical, I don't mean to call you out, CH Joe 83. But I'm actually surprised at how many times, this is like the 4th or 5th time, I've seen somebody in the community ask about marketing. And I don't know what they mean, frankly, or what they're talking about. Like, you already know about draw steel, it seems, almost by definition. And if between our books, and keep in mind, the physical books are going to go along. The PDF is nice. A PDF is nice. I think I'll smash the microphone into my face. I think the PDF is sort of the platonic ideal of the content, right? Because unlike a book, I could have multiple copies of the PDF open at the same time on my screen without having to spend any more money. And I can bookmark things and I can grab stuff and I don't have to, it's on every device. It's at home. It's at work. It's on my phone. It's everywhere I need it to be, baby. But I do not deny the power of the physical printed book, holding it in your hands. It can be emotional, especially if you're one of the people that worked on it, but also just hand it to your players and they leaf through it and they go, oh my God, in a way that the PDFs don't really. So when you in the audience are like, where's all the marketing? And I'm like, well, you already know about it. And if your players don't, I don't think our marketing is going to do anything. If you're not talking to your players about it, then I think that already says everything that needs to be said about it. And I'm not, and also like, I don't know if you noticed, but we've already sold like 40,000 copies of this book. And that number is going up somewhat precipitously right now. Especially the Delian Tomb is really popular as a product. Thank goodness. And so it seems as though everything's going well. I don't know what you're imagining marketing would do. We do have a budget for raising interest, marketing, and we have a strategy. It's just we're going to let the books do their job for a little while and wait for our general manager to get back from Gen Con, talk about that stuff. So we're not doing nothing. But yeah, it's weird. It's just something it's a perspective that I don't have. That's all. I don't need other people to be liking or talking about something for me to like and talk about it, especially if my friends and I are into it, Did any ideas from FTL influence Draw Steel? No. There are other games that we're working on that are unrelated to role-playing where FTL might be a bigger influence, but no, I don't think so. Are there any movies that inspired Draw Steel? Well, I mean, Adam Preset, each of us that worked on it had lots of references in our head for things we were trying to capture. Vibes and moments. And, when you get to the Complications, for instance, which are a big hit, I think it's safe to say, you get to Complications, and the idea of Complications is very much inspired by classic Chris Claremont X-Men, like early 80s X-Men. And all those characters have complications, and that's what makes them amazing characters. And then knowing that, and then playing Baldur's Gate 3, where every character has this really cool complication, right? Karlach has an infernal engine where her heart should be, and it gives her extraordinary powers, but it's killing her. That's a classic Draw Steel complication. So our influences come from all over the place. And there are things that are hugely influential to me personally, like the Eternal Champion series, that don't really have any impact on Draw Steel other than some of the lore, but not the gameplay. I gave L. Lawson some good advice on a live stream years ago, and they still remember it. That means the rash has gone away. No, I'm joking. Do I think about the fact that within the next few decades, those that sort of invented this hobby will leave us? What are you talking about? Is it the 90s? Did I move back in time? All those guys are already dead, aren't they? I think Tim Kask is still alive, fingers crossed. But, Gary and Dave are gone. I guess maybe it's the other way around. Like Gary and Dave are gone. And so, but like, isn't Dave Wesley the guy, like, I think the guy who actually invented the role-playing game? Isn't that dude still kicking around? That makes me really happy. More people should know who that is. Lee Gold, Alarums and Excursions. So I guess, no, you're right. So yeah, I have talked myself out of what I thought and into what you were saying, which is, it might be a loss for the hobby. I think they had a pretty big impact on the hobby, so I don't think it's a loss for the hobby. I think the hobby was very lucky to have those people in the first place. Very Glub, thank you very much. Thank you for the congratulations. L. Lawson says, thank you for creating a nice space to talk about TTRPGs online. Yep, that's what our Discord is very heavily moderated. Our chats, our live stream chats are very heavily moderated. It's annoying because YouTube, unlike Twitch, YouTube has it might just be that there's a lot more people hanging out and chatting, and Twitch would have the same problem, but I don't normally have that many players. Lol, that was a Freudian slip. But YouTube, I'll be reading chat and I'll be reading a message, and all of a sudden YouTube will be like, that's too many messages. Boom, and now I'm at now. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Did I have any difficulty adapting from a place? I think there may be some letters or words missing from this sentence that fit a more old school style to, I don't know what you're asking, Very Glub. Maybe ask that in a different way. Bearded Flannel Man says, is it true is it true that you hate, no, sorry, I'm just remembering an old meme from our streams. Is it true that you spent weeks perfecting the editing of your first 5 running the game videos and sent them to numerous friends who gave you the critical feedback to put them out? I think that exaggerates something that is true. It was mostly my friend Jay and my friend David, so it's 2 people. And I think it was only the first video. And I think I probably went through between 3 and 5 iterations. And it was mostly stuff about the background and what was in the background, the framing of the shot, the lighting, stuff like that. They weren't giving me feedback on the content per se. They were just telling me about how it looked visually. And yes, I did do that. And then I would re-record it, and then I would re-record it until I got it right. And they said, this is great. And then I went and recorded the rest of the other 5. You would be surprised, by the way, at this is much less true now, but it's still true, at the insane kind of negative comments that I get. I wish I did. I should have kept like a journal or something, screenshotted all of them before I banished those people to the shadow zone, because however weird, really bizarre you might think their takes are based on what I'm saying now, they were a lot weirder. They were a lot weirder. How convinced people were that I would have no success if I didn't change my presentation style based on their feedback. And it's like, I've got a career. I don't care if people don't engage with these videos. I'm doing them the way I want to do them, and I'm proud of them. And if you don't like it, well, you got the whole rest of the internet to go engage with. Why are you coming to tell me? But yeah, and that still happens. People like commenting on the way I talk or the way I look or stuff like that. But we have pretty good filters these days. It's pretty remarkable. GTL 5427 just wants to say thanks. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the kind words. Any timeline updates for the VTT? Nope. Blinks. The VTT is, we're still planning on getting a build to patrons by the end of this year. And then hopefully a release candidate about a year from now. So, and that's because we all internally have an incredibly high bar for software. You know, there was, like I said in the blog post, there's already somebody on Reddit who was like, I am in the DM Hub Codex playtest. It is already the best experience I have ever had with an RPG rule set and a VTT. And I saw that and I was like, we're on our way. We got a lot of work to do, but we're on our way. Any video game recommendations? I'm not really caught up on that, although I did buy Caves of Qud, and I want to check that out. Daniel Brady says, thanks for helping me get interested in RPGs that aren't on the computer. Look, I think Baldur's Gate is the best D&D experience you can have for a lot of reasons. And I could talk about that at great length. And I kind of maybe have a little bit. But yeah, if you like computer RPGs, you're going to like tabletop RPGs. In many ways, they are better. In some ways, they are worse. It all depends on what you value. I'm about to be a DM again. Congratulations, Archie Struthers. Once I'm past the meat in a drinking hall tavern initial dungeon, how do I start bringing new plot lines and characters into the story? I don't know. That's up to you, Archie Struthers. I don't know what kinds of plot lines or adventures. You know, I know people, really intelligent people, that think adventures are a bad idea. That you should not plan plots. You should plan scenarios. And I think that is, strictly speaking, wrong. However, if I reinterpret what they're saying as, you are spending too much time on plots and adventures, and you should try out just scenarios, by which I mean, like, all right, here's the giant, like you watch Dusk, right? A good scenario was they're trying to get from point A to point B, and there's a giant hobgoblin watchtower in the way. What are you guys going to do? I don't know. They could go around. They could try to bluff their way past. They could siege it. They could do any number of things. It's up to them. I didn't tell them what to do, right? Actually, what I told them was get from point A to point B. How they do it is up to them. Site-based scenarios is maybe a better way of thinking of it, as opposed to plot-based adventures. But I think a healthy diet can have all of those things. I don't know which ones you like. What I would recommend is go find an adventure that sounds cool to you. www.adventurelookup.com. People still use it. It's remarkable. Whatever your RPG of choice is, there are probably some great adventures out there for it. One of the problems with the D&D brand is that when you go online and you search for adventures, what you often get are these listicles of like the top 10 D&D adventures of all time. And almost without exception, they are all awful, almost impossible to run. And if run as written, not fun to play. But they're old. Most of them are from the 80s or even older. And as a result, they have this cachet. They have this cultural cachet that makes them legendary. And I'll just pick one example, and that is the Temple of Elemental Evil. Like, if you're going to try to run that thing as written, go check out dragonsfoot.org. There's a thread somewhere, hopefully still, fingers crossed, on that, which is just all the resources that fans of AD&D and Greyhawk have put together to try to make it so a normal dungeon master could run Temple of Elemental Evil. And it's a lot of work, right? But what happened was the people writing these listicles, they're probably my age or maybe younger, and maybe there was more of this around the turn of the millennium than there might be now. But I still see this problem when people look up D&D adventures. They still get all this junk. The problem is these people have very fond memories of these adventures, and they are unaware of how much work their dungeon master had to do to make that adventure fun. And I've had that as experience. I've had the experience of going by. I went and bought, Castle Amber, and I was looking through it. And I'm like, oh my God, Jesus, Brad had to do so much work to make this fun, right? What I actually enjoyed was the work Brad did. And I think every sufficiently old player is going to have that experience of being like, oh, I thought I loved this adventure, but really what I loved was and of course the director does not want you to know that. They don't want you to be thinking in those terms. They just want you to be focused on the secondary world and believing in it. So yeah, it's often years later. So that's the problem, I think, a little bit with D&D is if you're not new to it and you go look this stuff up, you get these lists. And so when I talk about adventures, people are like, what's that? Crucible of Freya, what's that? Like, it's a great starter adventure from Necromancer Games. There's a lot of great starter adventures, but I don't know your style. I can't, neither can I, nor am I particularly inclined to audit people's games. That's not my thing. What's a CC Cyclops? Chris Claremont, draw steel class based on Chris Claremont Cyclops. I think we got that. Church at Night. It's basically the talent. The talent is the X-Men. Now, not all the subclasses are out, but isn't it used to be called Flay, but that was the I-beams in a cone that just messed people up. However, that was back in MCDM products where the only psionic characters were dragons, and the idea of dragons having I-beams sounded cool to me. And then Flay is a good name for a monster ability. But then when we started working on the talent for players, it's like, we need to come up with a more heroic name for that ability. It's a little bit sinister. So I don't remember where we ended up on that. But Cyclops I-beams are in the game. 100%. Thoughts on Shadow Dark? I mean, I own it. I've got all the Shadow Dark stuff. I've got the DM screen, which is really cool. I've got Jersey Mike. I've got Cursed Scroll #1. I love this form factor. I basically think everything the Shadow Dark folks do is awesome. Cool pre-made character sheets. There's also, here's Cursed Scroll #2. If I thought I was going to live forever, I'd be running Shadow Dark, absolutely. But I am increasingly aware of my finite time upon this earth, and so I'm kind of focused on other stuff right now. But if I were, in my 30s or 40s, are you kidding? I'd be running Shadow Dark all the time, among other things. Mike Jones says the MCDM team has put far too much dope ass shit in these books. That makes me very happy. Constantly smile. That means you are one of our customers, Mike Jones. Thank you. A+. Do I think Oh, that's a good question, Chris Smith. I don't know, actually. Do I think I and or anybody else in the design team would post their Draw Steel session prep as a learning resource? That's a good idea. I think probably the answer is maybe me, but probably not anybody else, but maybe it would be up to them. What other people at the company do with Draw Steel at home is their business. And I don't encourage or discourage people who work here from streaming or sharing their personal notes or anything like that. I don't think there's a great hue and cry on the people in the team to do that stuff. But I could share my Draw Steel notes, and I probably will. I might. I don't know if I probably will, but I might once the adventure I'm running right now. We had to take a break because Lars and I, who are both in my Wednesday night game, we're crunching. But this week we're going to go back to Draw Steel, and when that adventure wraps, I might post my notes. The thing is, if you're on the Patreon, I posted my adventure notes from, all the Chain of Acheron stuff. It's years ago, but you can use tags and filters and search to find it. And it's one of those things where once you see my notes once or twice, you don't need to see any more. You go, I get it. And I think my draw steel notes are not any different. I think you might see a video about what I've learned running draw steel. And right now I would say the number one thing I have learned running draw steel, because it's a new system for me as well, keep in mind, is that you got to think ahead about where the players can rest. Because resting in draw steel is different than it is in normal D20 fantasy games. And I just got really lucky because the players were all of a sudden starting to talk about going back to town. And I was like, what do you guys are in the middle of an adventure? You can't go back to town now. Are you guys not having fun? And I meant that. I thought that they were like, okay, well, this adventure is over. I'm bored. And I was like, but what it turned out was, once I kind of listened to them a little bit more, was they were running out of resources. They were running out of recoveries. They were running out of recoveries and they needed to take a respite, and that they didn't know what I know. They did not know what I know, which is they are in an abandoned town and it is infested with ghosts, and they are a couple of rounds away from solving that problem. When they solve it, they will be able to take a respite in this town. But I did not plan that. I forgot about respites, right? They just happened to be at a point in the adventure where they are in the middle of a battle. And when that battle is over, this town will be safe. This house is clear. It's a reference for the old people in the chat. And so I just got really lucky when I was like, oh yeah, right. Yeah. Respites. Yeah. So that's one of the things is you need to be thinking a little bit differently about where the players can rest. You need to be making sure that at least you know what the player's options are when it comes to taking a respite. Like, where's the nearest Rivendell? That is a very different question from, can we spike the door shut and take a nap? That is almost always possible. But where's the nearest Rivendell can get to be a bit of a sticky wicket if you haven't thought about that ahead of time. I just got lucky. It's a good question though, Chris Smith. Thank you. We've been streaming now for an hour. Okay, so let's do at least another half an hour. I feel like this stream is going really well. Do I think a Castle Amber-esque fun dungeon house? Okay, so this is a great question, Joshua Whale. Do I think a Castle Amber style funhouse dungeon could work in draw steel? Absolutely. Because I start to get skeptical about could I do this in draw steel when you're talking about an adventure that I know for a fact is about clearing rooms, right? You know what I'm talking about, the big dungeon crawls where each room is lovingly detailed and the players are going to spend 20 minutes searching each room for traps. And it's like, oh, you find a bunch of supplies and they're like, how much are these supplies worth? 40 copper. Can we load them onto our wagon? Right. And oh God, we're running out of food. We got to go back to town. Oh my God, we're running out of torches. We got to go back to the forest. And right. If I know that's how that adventure works, I'm like, that's not really a draw steel adventure. But there's nothing, a funhouse dungeon is artificial in the first place, right? And actually, I think something like the original, not the original, the published 80s Castle Greyhawk would be super fun as a draw steel game. Absolutely. Castle Ravenloft, a great example, salvage bar, one of those, wow, that was fun. Yeah, because how much work your director did. Excuse me. I do the same thing, Alyssa Hallister. Use old modules or stuff from Dungeon Magazine. It's very rare that I use an adventure as written, but that's for one of two reasons. Either I look at the adventure and I'm like, okay, there are things about this I like, and I'm going to use those. I'm going to throw the rest out and fix it. That's one way I will do it. Another way I do it is I love everything about this, and it made me think of new stuff that I stick in. So either way, there's always going to be some nonsense that I came up with in there. The idea of using an event, I'm trying to think of adventures Crucible of Freya, usually when I recommend an adventure, it's because I basically just ran it as is, and it was super fun. Crucible of Freya, there's a bunch of these, by the way. There was an adventure called The Siege of Durgam's Folly, which I think is a Mike Merle's adventure, which was super fun until I got to the brain golem that had an immunity to the only things goblins are weak to. And I was like, did he mean to make an unkillable machine that would destroy everybody? Probably not. It's probably a bug. Playtesting with that. But there's a bunch of that. So that maybe is not the best example, but it was pretty good up until then. I've got lots of adventures that I've run basically as is. One of the adventures that I've recommended the most in my life was against the cult of the reptile god. And the reason I recommended it is because of how much work you have to do to make it work, right? It is not a soup to nuts as is, run it out of the box. Nope. There's a ton of work you have to do to make that adventure sing. But I feel like it's work you're going to have to do sooner or later. You might as well rip off the Band-Aid if you're a director, if you're serious about being a dungeon master. Do I have any advice for getting others to give you feedback? That's a really tricky topic. In general, I think that unsolicited feedback is usually just an attempt at manipulation. You can only really get useful feedback, I would say, from people that you have a good relationship with and you trust. And then inside that context, it has to be the kind of thing they would have engaged with anyway. Like, I've sent my novels when they were in early stages out to people I knew as beta readers. And in fact, I had my friend Jordy once. I said, could you do me a favor? If you know anybody that reads fantasy, and I know them, ask them if they'd be interested in beta reading a fantasy novel, and don't tell them I wrote it. So it was a way that I could get feedback from people I knew and trusted and respected, and they didn't know they were giving me feedback. And that feedback was pretty good, generally speaking. I mean, the best feedback I've ever gotten on my novels was my friend Zane, who, when he read the first draft of Thief, his note was, "You're not fooling anybody, Matt. Back to work." And I knew this dude, and I knew the way he thought, and I knew what he was saying, which was, you wrote a book that had a lot of depth and psychological nuance to it, and it was about ethics and stuff like that. And then after writing that, you thought you could get away with writing a Cowboy Bebop story. No. And I was like, oh, right. And so Thief is a lot more fun than Priest. That was always going to be true no matter what, but it has, I think, a lot of that bite and depth that first book had, because of the feedback I got from my friend Zane. But I kind of identified that person as somebody who would give good feedback. So just because somebody's sitting at your table playing your game does not necessarily mean that you're going to get good feedback from them, or that they're going to want to give you feedback in the first place. It's personal. It's idiosyncratic. I don't think there's a silver bullet for it. I think in general, you as a creative person are going to recognize the feedback that is meaningful and useful. For instance, we see people talking about Draw Steel everywhere online right now. And it's not a coincidence that when I see somebody talking shit about the game, or let's make it, I don't want to, my stuff. I'm the one doing the live stream. So let's limit it to the stuff I was in charge of, like lore and storytelling. When we see somebody talking shit about Draw Steel's lore or storytelling, it's not I don't think it's a coincidence that when I go, that's a super weird take, this thing that this person is upset by. Let me see if I can try to understand where they're coming from by looking at their post history. I go, oh, okay, well, anyway, you stay over there in that part of the internet. I'll stay over here in this part of the internet, right? That feedback is not useful or helpful, because that person was not ever going to be, right? The flip side is when I go on forums and places that are not our spaces, and I see people talking about the game, I often am able to see somebody who they engaged with the game in good faith, but they found a pain point, right? And anybody can do that. That could happen anywhere. We've extensively tested the game, more I think than any other RPG in this day and age ever gets testing like this. But there is no amount of testing that substitutes for releasing your product, right? There's no amount of testing you can do that will accurately simulate what happens when tens of thousands of people are pounding on it. And so when we see these people in the wild and they're talking about Draw Steel, and they don't know that we're watching, and you can see that they're engaging with the topic in good faith, but they found something that annoys them, I want to know. And often, oh yeah, that's a good point. Now what they think the solution is usually wrong, but because they're not a game designer. So it all depends. I guess what I'm trying to say is you will know when you get feedback that is meaningful and useful, because you hear it and you go, oh yeah. Oh yeah, good point. If you don't feel that way, then that wasn't good feedback. Right? That's what it means at the end of the day. Oh, it's called Optic Blast. That's a good name. It's a good name. Good job, Jordy. Well, that's the implication, is that flay is blow the skin away. Yeah. Are we going to see the chain make a comeback at all? Reno Envy. It is not impossible, but I don't know the future. If I did, I'd go buy lottery tickets. Are we worried about power creep as we continue to develop stuff? I'm not worried about it. That's not the same as saying it can't happen or that it won't happen, but we test stuff pretty rigorously. And I think that once the VTT is live and thousands of people are using it, we're going to get incredibly good metrics, the likes of which no one has ever seen in this hobby. And we'll be able to tell when things are overbalanced, unbalanced, overpowered. And we're planning on continuing. We got a public bug sheet anybody can add to, and we check and look at. And so we'll see. I think that sometimes big companies like video game companies with publishers and stuff, they like power creep because it incentivizes players to try the new stuff because of how busted and overpowered it is. We don't have that kind of problem. This isn't that kind of game. We're not that kind of company. So that's not to say that we couldn't end up with power creep, but it won't be as a result of those kinds of motivations. Oh, that's awesome, Jesse Rosa. Will we ever do any more of the competition scenarios? I doubt it. Those were super fun, but really, it's not a coincidence that you cite Against the Horde, which was a competition scenario that we published for Flea Mortals. We did like 3 of those for Flea Mortals, but after the first one, it was hugely diminishing returns. People thought, "Wow, this is super cool," and then when we published another one, they're like, "Well, I don't need another one. I already did this one. I don't need more of those." So no, probably not, because Against the Horde was successful, but none of the other ones were. There wasn't demand for it. It is revitalizing to a weary semi-veteran. I'm promoting you to veteran, Nate Spearman, to a weary veteran DM to see awesome systems like these. That makes me very happy. I mean, I think something people are cluing into, but it might take a while for it to really soak in, is how director focused Draw Steel is. Like, we are constantly thinking. I think other games in our league, I think, overburden the DM or director or Hollyhock God or whatever you want to call it with too much work. And they think as long as the players are having fun, we can count on the DM shouldering this burden. I'm like, it shouldn't be a burden. It should be fun. It should be fun. You get malice in Draw Steel. Yeah, only take criticism from people you take advice from. I would say that's pretty accurate. I didn't know that, Nassay Williams. That's cool. That Reptile God was the first adventure that you ran. I mean, Cowboy Bebop does definitely have depth, but at the beginning and end. In the middle, it's very episodic and fun. Breezy. I would say mostly Cowboy Bebop is breezy. And I thought that's how my novels were going to be. I thought I was going to be writing fantasy novels that were a lot closer to the stuff that inspired me as a young person. You know, the Myth Adventures books and stuff like that would be fun and funny, and a team of people that you enjoyed spending time with and hanging out with. But then I ended up writing Priest, and I was like, oh no, this is not that. Now I'm stuck with it in a good way. I mean, it's something I put a lot of work and effort into. By the way, it may be because there are so many people in chat. I'm not used to it, but I'm not seeing anybody being really mean or weird about anything. So that makes me very happy. Is the content for the 2 rule books in final release status? I.e., is it safe to purchase the printed versions? Yeah, they're being printed right now. They will ship to you sometime depending on where in the world you live, September, October. Yeah, it's absolutely safe. I mean, we're going to be monitoring how people. Our goal is, if Draw Steel grows over time, and all signs are pointing in the right direction right now, but the future's uncertain. You never know. It might be like, and we'd be like, okay, well, we tried it. Our goal is to see, what do people do with it, right? What direction do they take the game? Because we've made the game on purpose to cover a lot and be very flexible and support a lot of different kinds of games, because that's what D20 Fantasy is and does. It's not this one thing. And so we're like, you should be able to do stuff like this and stuff like this and stuff like that inside the context of tactical, heroic, cinematic fantasy. But if people are like, well, we don't really ever, I'll give you a weird example. I don't think this is true. If people are like, we never use the crafting rules. Like, really? Nobody ever uses the crafting rules? Huh. Okay. Then we'll probably start to diminish those over time in the products, because, well, we did a lot of work and we made these and we thought people would like them. And what happens is people go, yep, that's super cool. Don't need it. Moving on. And like, oh, okay, fine. or people go, I don't get it or whatever, but whatever, it doesn't really matter what the reason is. I would say that we've already talked about this with a couple of things where it's like, well, we like this. So if people aren't engaging with it, whatever the system is, whatever the subsystem is, we like this. So if people aren't engaging with it, let's figure out why and see if we can't revise it. So that's another way of saying the same thing, is that we want to make the game that people want to play. So if you like A, B, and C in Draw Steel, but you don't like F or G, then we can fix it, throw it out, go in a different direction. And that is going to be part of revising the game based on feedback. We have the power to, or it's not just that we have the power. We have the will to support the game. As long as people are playing it and its audience is growing over time, then we're going to continue to support it. We can't, I think people often enjoy taking these things out of context. We can't support it if people aren't spending money on it, because that support costs money. But right now things are going great. Do we have a timeline for a revised version of the rules? No, zero timeline in that regard. Will you get more Arcadia? Well, Wakeful, I don't know how much you know about Arcadia, because I don't know you, no shade. But Arcadia was a third-party product for someone else's game. So what would be the analogy there for Draw Steel? It wouldn't be an MCDM product. There already is, I think, a couple of Arcadias for Draw Steel. There's the Blacksmiths Guild that looks really cool. There's a couple of fan-made zines for Draw Steel. So those things are already out there. I would say, if you're looking for bite-sized Draw Steel content, that's what the Patreon's for. That's what the Patreon's for. The patrons are going to get new classes for Draw Steel, new ancestries for Draw Steel, new adventures for Draw Steel, new lore for Draw Steel. That's all on the Patreon, and they're all already getting that stuff, which is super cool. I mean, do the patrons have the summoner? Or is that still in internal testing? I think the patrons have the summoner. I could be wrong. The Paul Ghost is like, I always find it hard to describe how my DMing style is. Well, I would say that for most of my DMing life, I would have said the same thing. I don't know how to describe my style. But now that there are more people online running games and there's more of a language of this, it's a little bit easier for me now. And that's probably the next Running the Game video. It's going to be me talking about what I think my style as a DM is. And the reason I think it's going to be interesting is because I think it's going to surprise people. Because I think there's a consensus in the larger internet blogosphere, or whatever you want to call it, about what kind of DM Matt Colville is, which I often think is mostly circumstantial. It's like, it's not that isn't true, but that's just because it's the chain, and that doesn't have anything to do with, that's just that I only like that when I'm running that game for those players. The patrons do have a version of the summoner. Yeah, the patrons. So if you're looking for more, I'm looking for Arcadia stuff for Draw Steel. That is the Patreon. There are already Draw Steel adventures on Adventure Lookup. That makes me super happy. Silly Bands Chick says, how long has Matt been live? 1 hour and 17 minutes. So probably about another 15 minutes, and we'll see where we're standing. I feel like the stream is going really, really well. Hey Matt, hello, Eamon Hochette. Do you have any thoughts on Fabula Ultima? I think it's the ultimate fabulation. I literally have never seen those two words in that order before. So no, those are my thoughts. How am I now that it's out? Jameson Getman, I'm doing pretty good, pretty happy. What about the printed Draw Steel CF content? I don't know what CF is in this context. Do I have any recommendations on getting into TTRPG design professionally? Yeah, but I think it's all been said elsewhere, and at this point, I think it would take too long to go into in this stream. There's nothing stopping you from in order to do it professionally, you're going to have to do it as an amateur for a long time and get notice, and that often means selling yourself. It's not just if you put your work out there and nobody knows who you are, they're not going to pay attention. So what you need to do first is you need to be active in those places where people are buying or downloading and talking about the kinds of stuff you're going to be making. And you need to be a native in those spaces. You can't be a carpetbagger. People can tell, right? And the example is like I still am. I still post every once in a while on /r/fantasy for years. And then I had a novel of my own. And so I said, hey, I just wrote my first fantasy novel. It's free on Kindle for the next 2 weeks. And I got like 1,700 downloads. because people were like, oh, hey, it's Matt. I wasn't some, they're like, I know that guy. Yeah, that's the guy that likes a black company and this, that, and the other thing. Right. So that's the way you do it. You have to, people aren't going to download it sight unseen if they have no idea who you are, because how did they get to your work? Right? How did they find out your work existed if not because of you talking about it? And if they have no idea who you are, then they're probably never even going to see your message. So I would say there are other ways to answer that question. They're also equally good, but we are limited on time. Yeah, James did a video about this, which is really good. Narrative wounds. What's a narrative wound? A wound to the narrative, a wound to the plot. Ooh, oh, ow, my denouement. Oh, my denouement took 10 damage. I have a narrative wound. I don't know. I don't actually necessarily know what you mean by that. Was there any consideration taken in adapting my setting from a more old school style? I don't know what that means. Toward a more high fantasy heroic one. I don't think anything about my setting's high fantasyness or heroicness changed. All of the changes to my setting all happened 25 years ago, because I started working in my setting in 1989, and it was originally much more idiosyncratic. There were still like elves and dwarves because it was a setting for D20 fantasy, and I broadly liked that stuff, and it seems other people do too. So I wasn't motivated to throw that stuff out. But like elves could not be clerics. Dwarves could not be wizards. You could not be either a dwarf or elf until you were like 3rd level or 7th level. There was all sorts of nonsense. It was really weird. And so I already polished all that shit out of there and made something that I thought was broadly commercial and that I still really liked. And that's the one you got. So yeah, those considerations happened, but they just happened. They happened when Seattle opened D20 Fantasy in the year 2000. I was working there at the time. I remember there was a setting challenge, which is where Eberron came from. And I don't remember if I entered it. I don't think I did. But I do remember asking if employees could enter. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, I don't think I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to do anything publishy with it. Are there any social TTRPG mechanics you like? Yes. I like the negotiation rules for negotiating with NPCs in a brand new RPG that just came out last week. You should check it out. I think you would probably like it. It does sound like a troubadour ability, Stian Becken. Why do I feel? I don't know. I don't know why you feel anything, Joshua Whale. I can't answer. I'm not your therapist. Gnome says, Matt, I've always appreciated your philosophy of trying to include the PHB stuff in some form in your game. Yeah. I mean, you could make a fantasy setting that is wildly heterodox, and you will find an audience. But I like generic medieval fantasy. I like lots of stuff. I like weird shit, and I like a lot of. For me, it's all about execution. I'm actually a huge fan of Tolkien, but I am more a fan of Tolkien as a writer than I am of the things that he wrote. Even though I love The Lord of the Rings. So yeah, I mean, do what you want, but. Yeah, I always feel as though if you're going to put a book in front of people that has a bunch of options in it, you sort of owe it to them to make sure that those options are somewhere in your game. But at the same time, once everybody at the table has that is more true for new players. New players, you don't want to put a bunch of options in front of them and get them excited and then tell them that they can't have some of those. That's weird. But this is sort of the same as my attitude toward what kind of handout should you be giving people? And I'm like, if your players are new to the game, the handout cannot be more than a page long. If you make it any longer than that, they're not going to read it. They're not going to read it. Maybe some of them will, but in general, that's your handout. Your campaign handout is not why they got excited about D&D, right? But the flip side is, and this is where nuance comes in and why the internet is bad, but because people only quote the first half of this when they quote me. That's true of many, many things I say, is people quote the first half and not the second half. Like there was somebody in the comments to the backstory video where like, oh, so this entire campaign is terrible because they did this one backstory thing you said not to do. And I didn't have to say anything because the first response was somebody going, well, actually what he said was, unless that's the kind of game your DM is running, And that is exactly the kind of game that DM is running. So what are you talking about? You see what I mean? About how they take the first half of everything say, which is, it's just the internet for you. But the flip side of that is once your players are experienced and they've had a couple of games or sessions or adventures under their belt and you're running something new for them, well, then I think you can do something like say, nope, there are no dragon knights in this game. Oh, okay, cool. You know, like my friend Phil wanted to run D&D for us, but didn't do it because he thought his setting was too weird. He's like, my setting is literally just dwarves. There are no humans or elves. And he felt like, and I know this because I was sitting next to him at the time at work, he felt like, people aren't going to go for that. I'm like, why not? They just like you and they want to play and they think you're going to be a good DM. No, there's a literally infinite number of dope ass dwarf characters we could all make. Saying you all have to be dwarves is no restriction as far as I'm concerned. Right. And that's as restrictive as it gets. You all have to play this one species. It's like, yeah, but there's still an unlimited number of heroic options, even in something as restrained as that. And when I told him that, he was like, really? And he ran a great game. It was super fun. You can watch some of it. Valengard. It's on one of our YouTube channels. Oh, hey, John Champion. I hope Gen Con went well for you. I mean, it's still happening. It's only Saturday. What does it mean to be a human? That's a good question. I wish I knew. Meandering Mike was like, I loved the All Dwarf adventure. It was great. It was super fun. Yeah, the internet taking something out of context. Well, that's the thing is when you see that happening, that means you have permission to ignore it and move on. Does Ord have saints? Saints are a human notion, but the interlocutor concept is universal. So in other words, every species in Orden has gods, and those gods are limited in their ability to interact with the physical world, and they use interlocutors or go-betweens. Humans call them saints. Elves and dwarves call them heroes. They're the same thing. They're different terms for the same thing. I mean, I would say Neelix talking about Terry Pratchett, Night Watch, Ankh Morpork, and Draw Steel. Ankh Morpork, it was a huge inspiration for me as a world developer. In fact, I asked James to read the Guards trilogy to understand how I think about different species and about letting different species be different and give them their own cultures, and don't shy away from that, but also don't make it narrow-minded and don't make it simplistic. Give it depth, you know. How's my in-person game going? Are my players liking Draw Steel? Let me tell you something, Daniel Lolobo. They are Phil, who didn't like 4th edition. Phil, after he had it was probably the 3rd session. The first session, Phil was like, maybe this isn't for me. The second session, he started to sort of understand that I should have made characters for them. I didn't do that. That was a huge mistake because they had not read the rules yet. And so they were picking abilities and they literally had no idea what these abilities did. And then when they tried to play it, they were never as cool as they imagined in their head. That was a problem. And I absolutely could have solved that problem ahead of time by making characters. Like, what do you want to play? You want to play like a Revenant Barbarian? Kind of, no problem. I will do that for you. Here you go. And then they can change it if they don't like what I would do, but I would be picking abilities with intent. So once they got over that hump, it was night and day. And Phil messaged me and he's like, Matt, I think the power roll is a game changer, dude. It's brilliant. He goes, I was so excited playing Draw Steel. It got me wanting to run D&D for my kids. And then I started thinking about Call of Cthulhu, and I started looking at other games, and every time I would be like, oh Christ, I forgot how often you miss in that fucking game. And you just sit there doing nothing. He's like, I don't think I can go back. And that was, in many ways, it doesn't really matter to me how successful or unsuccessful Draw Steel is. Like I said, all signs are pointing in the right direction. That kind of feedback, that's what when I'm 30 years, good Lord, I hope not, like 10, 15 years from now, fingers crossed, when I'm thinking back on this game, those are going to be the things I remember. And then my friend Brock, who I've never played any tabletop games with Brock. I've known Brock, for 15 years. He's awesome. He's super cool. He's a programmer at Turtle Rock. And one of my all-time favorite, I think Brock knows that I tell this story. I don't know if he remembers doing this, but he wanted to help me with getting he thought it would be useful if he made a tool for writing dialogue for the game that we were working on. But I didn't really need a tool. I just used Excel, and Excel was already a tool would have made everything take longer. And I knew that, but he didn't really know that. So he's kind of auditing my process, and he's just literally looking over my shoulder as I'm working. And he goes, "All right," this is a direct quote. It's one of the, he goes, "All right. Yeah. All right. I see. I get it. You write this stuff, and then the actors come in and record it." And he's thinking in terms of workflow. He's thinking in terms of the Excel sheet and who the director is and where the information's coming and going. That's what he's really thinking of. He's thinking about the whole workflow. He's imagining me in the studio with this sheet. He's imagining the actors and what they see when they're recording. But what he said was, "Right, you write this stuff, and then the actors come in and record it." And I went, "Yeah, Brock, we tried it the other way around. It didn't work that well." And he went, and he turned and looked at me and went, "You're very clever, Matt," which was the nicest thing anyone's ever said about me, while throwing enormous shade at me. He was essentially saying clever, but useless. And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's fair." Brock is messaging me about the adventure that he is designing for Draw Steel. He's like, I'm hooked. Now all I want to do is make stuff for this game. And I'm like, so when you ask how my friends are liking it, they are liking it a lot. Anybody who's leaving to go watch Taskmaster, that's a good person. Oh, hey, what's up? Jack Brophy worked on Baldur's Gate 3 as a member of the writing team. I heard that like every character had their own writer or writing team. If so, that's fucking amazing. Jack Brophy, you worked on what may be the best game I've ever played. In a recent video, you mentioned that you loved it. I did. Is it just Astarion thirst? Astarion! I love Astarion. I think he's one of the best characters ever in any game. I don't have that thing in me where I judge games based on the fuckability of the characters. I know that's a very, very popular lens to see games through. That ain't me. And also, when I downloaded and played Baldur's Gate 3, it was right after it released, and there was that bug where everybody in the game wanted to fuck you as soon as they met you. And I was like, what is this game? But then I heard that it was, but I just took Astarion as a character on their own terms. And I thought and it wasn't just Astarion, actually. I'm a Gale fanboy. I thought Gale was awesome, incredibly well written, well realized, brilliantly acted. I thought the whole thing was just amazing. I thought there were characters in it that I never really cared about. But I don't think that's a criticism of the game. I mean, you put that many characters in a game, and let me put it this way. That's a very MCDM way of looking at things. If no one is thinking, "Oh, I hated that character," then you probably did something wrong. And I would be really surprised if the people at Larian disagreed, right? The whole point is to make stuff that provokes a reaction. And it's going to provoke, if it provokes strong positive reactions, guess what? It's going to provoke strong negative reactions. And so I had strong negative reactions to some of the characters, not in the sense that I thought they were badly designed. I just didn't care about them and didn't care what happened to them. Fair enough. But I didn't, and there were lots of characters that I really liked, and I would love to do another playthrough to get their perspective and get them in the party. The reason I have only played one, I've said this before many times, but I don't mind saying it again. There was a long period where I was playing Baldur's Gate 3 and I thought, is this going to be like NetHack where I'm just, playing this game for the rest of my life? And it's always on the short list. It's a handful of games like that where I will always go back to FTL. If my friends are playing, I'll always go back to Rocket League, stuff like that. And I thought I could spend the rest of my life playing Baldur's Gate 3 and just exploring different combinations and character options. Of course, at the same time, this is back when I thought that there would be DLC for Baldur's Gate 3. But apparently, I am not a good person and I do not deserve good things. So I don't get Baldur's Gate DLC. I don't know why. But maybe I'll find out when I'm at the pearly gates. And they're like, well, here's why, man. And when I got the ending I got with Gale, I sort of thought of Gale as the main character in the party. I also wasn't happy with the way Astarion's story resolved. It was pretty good, but I felt like there was a better thing there. It's hard to describe, but I got Gale's ending, which is what I wanted. And it was so satisfying. And I streamed this. I didn't stream me playing Baldur's Gate because if it's a game I've never played before, I can't really stream it because a part of my brain, the streamer brain, is turned on, the commentary part, and that kind of ruins the play experience. So I need to learn a game first and then I can stream it. But by the time I was getting close to the end of Baldur's Gate 3, I'm like, okay, I could stream this. And I did, and I streamed the finale and the ending. It's now long gone. I think it's not on Twitch anymore. Thank God. That's another reason I like streaming on Twitch. Things go away. I remember sitting there on stream when Gale is like, let me do this. And I sat there for, it must have been 20 minutes, just agonizing over what would my character do? What is the right thing to do here? What is the thing that is true to these characters in this moment? And eventually I was like, yeah, man, you got to do it. You got via con Dios, right? And watching that ending with Gale, talking shit and being himself at the final moment and willingly sacrificing himself for his friends. And then the denouement, everything that happened after that was heartbreaking and so perfect and good. And I was like, that's it, man. That's Baldur's Gate. Why would I play it again? Why would I play it again? That's my Baldur's Gate. That's mine. That's the one that was my story. It was so satisfying. And I sort of feel like I will get back to it, but it's been now, what is it, a year or 2 years? And I still feel that way. So yeah, I do love that game. There are things about it, design decisions they made that I thought were really bad. And I sort of felt like I could feel political struggles inside the team regarding who should be leading on this charge, but I could be wrong. But none of those things, this is a real important lesson that I learned playing Baldur's Gate. It's been true my whole life, but I only learned this playing Baldur's Gate 3 and Stellaris while I was working on Draw Steel, right? And I was like, oh, right. All, maybe, if not most. There are exceptions. There are exceptions. But most of my favorite games that I have played thousands of times have really, really bad design in them. Like Settlers of Catan, which I think they just call Catan now, right? It's like, maybe they've changed it because it's been like over a decade since I played Catan. Maybe about a decade since I played. But I was there when Catan came out. I loved it. I remember I was there when Catan sort of took over the world, right? And my friends and I were all playing it. We bought the expansions and we loved it. We loved it. We loved it. We loved it. And then eventually we noticed, if you know how this game works, you can just look at the starting setup after everybody's placed their little settlements, and you can tell who's going to win with about, 80-85% accuracy. That's bad design. But we didn't care. We didn't care. We didn't care until after we had played it hundreds and hundreds of times. And then we went, well, by that time there were other games. Talisman. Talisman is not a great game design-wise. It's got, I could talk very intelligently. I could speak for hours about how annoying and dumb a lot of Talisman's design is, but it's also brilliant and delightful. And my friends and I played it thousands of times. We spent an entire summer playing nothing but Talisman. We had an Excel sheet we built showing every character everybody played and how often they won with them, because we were trying to see where these things. But we made our own Talisman expansion from scratch. We called it Talisman Hell, and we had everybody that we in our gaming group contributing ideas to it, and we were stealing from every fantasy series we loved, which was what part of the fun of it. So like the men here from the Black Company are in there, and we went to Kinko's and we photocopied the back and we made it look so it looked like on cardstock, and it was Talisman Hell, and it was a board that went around the outside, so it was like down one level, and it's the design is bad. But that's the thing is, like, I think you can have a game. This is something that was important to me because I was like, oh, hang on a minute. Don't get too worked up about the platonic ideal of game design. It doesn't exist. You're gonna do your best. There are going to be things about Draw Steel that annoy me, and there may be one or two that I've already discovered. Some of those were my idea, and now that I'm playing it, I'm like, ugh, right? But that has never stopped me from loving a game. And a lot of what we love about games is vibe. As long as the rules don't actively get in the way of the vibe. So for me, whatever problems I may have with Baldur's Gate 3, they pale into, just like Catan, just like Talisman, whatever problems I may have with them, they pale into insignificance compared to how much fun we had playing it, how much I loved Baldur's Gate 3. So no, it's not a story on thirst. I don't have that kind of relationship with the video game characters that I engage with of any background type, manner, shape, fashion, or form. But I do think Astarion is a fucking brilliant. I think that actor deserves all of the kudos they have gotten. But also somebody had to write that shit. And then the design had to support it. So whatever the Larian team does next, I am on board for 100%, 100%. Yeah, Ethan Lennon, I'm not going to repeat what you said, but I am not surprised. John Dillon says, love you, Matthew. I love you, John, even though I have no idea who you are. And I might not like you if I met you. But in principle, I love everybody. In reality, most people annoy me. Steve-O MOA is saying the same thing, and I believe it. There is a ton of great mod content for it. Garthor, Son of Odin. You know what I saw? There's an Illrigger somebody made for Baldur's Gate 3, and people seem to like it. And I was like, that's awesome. I feel like we are now at the end of the stream. This went about as well as it would go. Have I played Moonring? I have literally never heard of that. For me, gaming is principally a social thing. I play the games that whatever my friends and I are doing are the games that we play. Yeah, exactly. What a great, somebody upstream and then YouTube flushed past. Oh, here it is. Cheese in the Wind says, Catan passed the refrigerator test. Yeah. In the moment, it was great. In the moment, it was awesome. It was only after we had played a lot and we could sort of see the design underpinning it. They were like, oh God, why, what? Oh, well. But at that point, who cares? At that point, we had already, when I introduced Talisman at Turtle Rock Studios, I had fallen out of love with it years before. I just knew it's a great classic gateway game. And I knew I would still enjoy playing it as a nostalgia engine. And watching my friend Lars, who's one of my best friends, watching Lars completely fall in love with Talisman and go totally overboard, running Talisman games at home for his friends, buying all the expansions and stuff, running it for his friends, getting his friends into it and stuff like that. And then going through the exact same arc I went through. We played the shit out of it for like a year and a half. And then he started to notice how junk it was. And he's like, Talisman, right? It's like, yeah, but that's part of the process, right? Excuse me. Well, I make more content like art versus existential dread. I don't know. I feel like I made that one. I made that, and that was what I had to say on that topic. Sigrid Helmsman, I try to avoid making lifestyle content, or commenting on how to live or what I know or think about the world outside of gaming. And I have made content like that, especially my live streams, my Twitch streams back in the day. My Twitch streams were about whatever people wanted to talk about. We could talk about politics. Absolutely. There were people who enjoyed getting my perspective. And there were a whole bunch of people who were like, redlining, what's that? And I was like, oh my God. If you're 17, that's fine. If you're 33 and you're an American citizen, what are you doing? Right? Stuff like that. And we would talk about whatever. And the response was broadly positive. But then I saw a comment. Shall I repeat this? Yeah. I saw a comment. I feel like I don't want to call anybody out. I don't want to call anybody out in case this person from years ago happens to be in the chat or whatever. But somebody on a social media site said, I don't need famous, I'm not going to say their name, famous, notorious, manosphere, incredibly toxic, right-wing nut job. I don't need that person anymore. I have Matt Colville now. And what they meant was as a life coach, as a guru. And you might think if you knew who that person was and you know who I am, you might go, oh shit, good. You shouldn't be listening to that guy. This guy's better. But my attitude is you shouldn't be listening to any of these people. You sure shouldn't listen to me when it comes to stuff like that. Are you kidding me? Right? And that idea of, wear my picture around your neck, and I'll be your guru. I'm like, no. So I have a very complicated relationship with my online presence when it comes to stuff like that. And as soon as I saw that comment, I went from streaming all the time I went from streaming on a schedule to being like, nope, not doing that anymore. I stream when I feel like it. I talk about what I want to talk about. I don't talk about life and philosophy and politics the way I used to. And I think everybody's happier that way, including me. So more stuff like art versus existential dread. I don't think that would be good bang for buck. What I've got is enough. Oh, Chicken Dragon is asking, what was that band you liked that consisted of former rebel soldiers? The Soul Rebels, Tinariwen. They are Tuareg musicians. There's a bunch of, I broadly like all the Tuareg music I've listened to. I've got a bunch of albums of Tuareg musicians, and they were nomads. They were literally like Arab, I think, nomads. And then in the 20th century, people put borders, like checkpoints with, chicken wire and soldiers and stuff in the middle of the desert, and these people couldn't do what they used to do, and they became rebels, and they became musicians, and they play folk, like North African folk music with Mississippi Delta blues instruments and chord voicings. And it's remarkable. It's super awesome. It's not, James Herbert says, I must have a North Star, else I will be lost. It's not that I think people don't need mentors and people to look up to. They absolutely do. Everybody does. We need people. We need culture and art and sociology to help us through this life in this world. You cannot, even if you wanted to, you cannot live your life only ever inside your own head. So I absolutely think that people need leadership. Read Draw Steele. I actually believe a lot of that stuff, about when John says the people need leadership, he means it. He really believes that. And so do I. I just don't want to be one of those people because I know what happens to them. I know what happens to those kind of people, and I don't want to be one of them. Have I played Wasteland 3? I don't know. That's a good question. No, I don't think I have. I played the first Wasteland. I liked it a lot. I worked with a guy named Jason Anderson. Fucking genius. That guy's so cool. That guy's awesome. I sat next to that guy for years on the last big video game I worked on. And he was one of the original Wasteland guys, I think. One of the original founders of Troika. I mean, yeah, basically Very Glub. And so I always am kind of watching what that brand does, but I only played, I think, that first one. See what I mean? How it gets weird real fast. So thanks for watching, folks. I feel pretty good about the way everything's going. Well, yeah, Jacob Cooper says your mentors should be people you know in real life. Well, I don't know. It depends on what you mean by mentor, I guess. But I have certainly felt like I learned an enormous number of life lessons from the creative professionals that inspire me. Like when David Bowie says, like, don't play to the gallery. Right. And I listen to what he says and what he means. And I'm like, oh my God, watching people who've gone before me and the lessons they learned, often in completely unrelated disciplines like music. Right. But I feel hugely inspired, and I go, that's the way to live. That's the way you do it. Right. And yeah, that's so you gotta find inspiration and guidance somewhere. And I don't judge people where they find it from. I don't want to be involved. When it comes to helping people get behind the screen and think about being a director or a dungeon master or game design or writing, 100% no problem. We can talk about that as much as you want. But once you get outside that kind of stuff, we'll still talk about it every once in a while, but I don't want to make a habit out of it. Meandering Mike, thank you very much. Thank you for having shop pay. I don't know what that is, but you're welcome for that thing I didn't know we did. So thanks for watching, folks. I'm going to take a break. It's 6:18 here on the Best Coast. Daniel Brady, I don't know, probably. I think a mentor is somebody you have a personal relationship with, maybe, an inspiration. So that's what I meant when I said, like, it depends on how you define these things. We're going to stop now. I don't know what the next time we're going to see each other. You're going to get more YouTube content. You're going to get more running the game content. I've got a couple of videos in the pike, but I'm going to mix in a lot of Draw Steele content in there, which I know not everybody cares about. I don't care. It's my channel. It's my channel. We're going to talk about the stuff that I want to talk about. We may go to space tonight on my Twitch channel, but we may not. It depends. Oh, look, I forgot my modular synth is on. Is this it? Yep, that's it. I bought a very expensive mixer that I think might actually be broken, or it might not be getting enough power. And it really makes me sad, but the rest of this is super cool. So we may go to space tonight. I don't know. Come hang out on Twitch twitch.tv/Matthew_Colville. And yeah, I don't know where we're going to, what's up, Ozai75? Jesus, Ajax is strong. Yeah. And that's before him being the Iron Saint. Yeah. Go to space in what way? Wouldn't you like to know? Well, so we may see each other later tonight on Twitch. We may not. I don't know. The future is uncertain. Eat your dessert for. In fact, let's end it. Let's end it thusly wise. The future is. These are remember the 3 lessons, folks. The 3 lessons. I remember. You better remember them because I don't. Lesson 1 is be good to yourself. Because no, it's not. That's number 2. Lesson 1, erase. Don't worry, I'll get it right. When we go live, when we do this for real, we'll do it. Number 1 is imagine other people complexly. Everybody you meet, even those people talking shit about you online, everybody you meet, that person who cut you off in traffic, the person being a wang to you when you're at the checkout, they are going through a ton of shit that you know nothing about. And if you did know about it, you would give them some slack, right? So cut them some slack. And this is shortcut all that and just cut them some slack now. Imagine other people complexly. But the flip side of that is be good to yourself because nobody else is on the hook to do it. You know, think about the kind of advice you would give a friend of yours if they were going through what you're going through. That's good advice. Maybe you should listen to it. And I would say the last piece of advice, which is obviously the most important, is life is uncertain. Eat your dessert first. Until next time, be seeing ya.